Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so that you can get notifications on my latest videos, including my reviews of the Dollenganger books and movies. This week I am discussing If There Be Thorns, which is the third movie in the Dollenganger saga. Kathy and Chris are now living in California with Kathy's two adolescent sons. Jory is an aspiring professional ballet dancer like his father Julian, and Bart Jr. is an awkward preteen. He's 12 in the movie, but 9 or 10 in the book. When a woman dressed in black moves into the house next door with her butler, the new neighbors take an inappropriate interest in the younger brother and fill his mind with disturbing stories about the dark family past he never knew he had. The movie opens with Bart being thrown out of a bus and nobody but his brother caring. I guess that's the 80s for you. And Jory soon abandons his kid brother to go off with his girlfriend Melody. In the opening of the book, there's a scene where Jory gets off a bus, but Bart isn't with him. In the book, the boys don't seem to have much interaction with kids their own age. Obviously, they've been isolated by the parents, for obvious reasons. Poor Bart. Nobody seems to care about him. In the movie, his stepfather Chris blows him off when he returns to the house alone. Chris has more important matters to discuss with the housekeeper. Kathy is teaching ballet to a little blonde girl named Cindy, whose mother is in the hospital. Bart slips away to his treehouse and his bug collection. There are dirty magazines up there as well. Are they his? He's about 12 in the movie. My first thought is that they might be Jory's, who I think is maybe 17 in the movie. Who knows? They could also be Chris's. I wouldn't put it past the pervert. By the way, in both the book and movie, the boys have a dog named Clover. Turns out the magazines are Bart's. He tells his older brother that he got them from the basement next door. They live next to an abandoned house. In Petals, the brothers are about 2 years apart. Maybe 3. In Thorns, I'm pretty sure they are about 5 or 6 years apart. It's very strange. The boys go check out the empty house next door. Bart is wounded by a nail, but he doesn't want to tell his parents. In the book, he gets a wound from a nail later on in the story. I get the feeling his decision to not tell his doctor dad is going to come back to bite him, just like it did in the book. The boys' exploration of the house is interrupted by a creepy man who tells them that they're trespassing. Now it's dinner time. Bart got a C on his geometry test. He blames his average grades on the lack of a pet python. His parents are like, no, nice try. Kathy is talking about wanting to adopt Cindy if her mother dies. Later on, Bart hears Jory and Melody sneak into the attic. Bart spies on them and then on his parents doing it doggy style. In VCA land, doggy style probably is a mortal sin. I don't remember Jory getting this much action in the book, but then again, in the book, he was a bit younger. Bart's wound is beginning to get infected or something. There are new people who have moved in next door, and Bart thinks the woman looks like a witch in her black dress and black veil. Jory mentions that she must be rich because the guy with her appears to be her butler. I know from reading the book and series that this is the Foxworth Hall butler, John Amos. He apparently knew a lot about what was going on in that mansion back in the day and used to gossip with the maids about it. The woman of the house invites Bart and Jory in for tea and cookies. She introduces John Amos and gets John to snap a Polaroid photo of them. This weird lady next door has a painting of a blonde boy who looks a lot like Chris, but she doesn't want the boys to see it. She says she would like help around the house and in her greenhouse and offers to pay Bart to help out. She tells them her last name is Foxworth, but that name means nothing to them. It becomes clear that Bart is the one she is interested in. She wants to give Bart gifts, and she has a little talk with him alone, excluding Jory. I don't see any facial scars on her like there were in the book, so it's interesting that she wears the veil in the movie too. In the book, we're told that she disfigured herself because of how painful it was to her to look like the daughter she betrayed. Bart is curious about his father and his family. He and Jory have a conversation about this. Their mother's mother is in a mental institution, her father is dead, and Chris's father and mother are dead. They sure do seem to have a lot of dead people in their lives. In the book, the boys are told that Corinne is Chris's mother. In the movie, they're told she's Kathy's mother. Not sure why they made this change. Kathy overhears her son's conversation. She interrupts it as Jory is getting ready to leave for Melody's. She asks him why he's going to his girlfriend's place so late, and he says he needs to help tutor her. But then he winks at Bart, so it's safe to say he's not really going there to tutor her. Kathy has a conversation with Bart about his father and how he should basically shut up about it and move on. She doesn't say it like that, but that's what it comes down to, right? Bart later sees Corinne without the veil in the greenhouse. She's bought him a pet snake. In the book, he asks for a pony and is given a dog that he calls his puppy pony. In the movie, it's a snake that he wants. Corinne tells him that she's his grandmother and that she was only in an outpatient clinic, not a mental institution. Well, that's okay then. Corinne tells Bart not to tell his parents about their relationship. Bart says Chris has a no-secrets policy, which Corinne thinks is very ironic. Chris is clearly a strong advocate of doing as he says, not as he does. Once outside, John lures Bart to the barn and starts to give him a lesson on Malcolm. He says he sees a little of Malcolm and Bart and gives the boy the Foxworth Patriarch's Journal of Tyranny so he can live a godly life. He also tells Bart not to inform his parents about this. Don't even think about telling Jory. So all kinds of alarms are going off here. The journal talks about things like women and lust and how evil all of that is. Bart starts noticing that sex is all around him. There's Jory and Melody going at it, and Kathy and Chris. Chris is such a doctor. He likes to talk shop at the dinner table. And Marisha, Julian's mother in Petals, remember, interrupts dinner with a call to her grandson Jory. Chris doesn't like Marisha. She's a tough one, and he's quick to remind his wife that she doesn't like that old witch either. But Kathy feels strongly that Jory should have a relationship with his grandmother. Bart asks why he can't have a relationship with his own grandmother, who's locked away in some institution for crazy ladies. Kathy shuts that down quick. She doesn't have anything to do with that grandmother, so neither will he. Bart leaves the table soon after. Kathy thinks he looks funny, and he's apparently lost his appetite. I want to take a moment to say that this is a really nice house Kathy and Chris own. I'm kind of jealous. Now Kathy is in the attic, where she has set up 2 small beds for 2 young boys. Interesting. Chris is horrified when he sees what she's done. She's worried about people finding out the truth about them and doesn't want anyone to take away her children. Here's the thing, though. She's eager to adopt little Cindy, whose mother is dying. Chris doesn't think that will be good for their family. In the book, Kathy and Chris have a big fight about this. She basically lashes out at him and accuses him of being behind all of the tragedies in their lives. She thinks he was happy to see all of her previous lovers die, and was basically biding his time until he could have his way with her, and she has this sort of defeatist attitude about it. In the book, I definitely think her relationship with Chris is a trauma bond. She didn't end up with him because he was the love of her life, but because he essentially wore her down with his relentless pursuit of her. Chris's feelings in the book are more of a toxic obsession, but in the movie the relationship is painted as more mutual. Jory overhears this conversation in the attic and is confused. And now Bart is missing. They search the backyard with flashlights. Clover the dog is barking. Corinne is on her balcony, watching like the creep that she is. Jory finds Bart near death, lying on the ground. In the book, he got gas gangrene, and I don't know if that's what it is in the movie or not, but now he's in the hospital and he's allergic to all the antibiotics they give him. Kathy is like, how in the name of Foxworth did I end up with this wimp of a son? His father wasn't a weakling. Okay, she doesn't use those exact words, but pretty close to it. She's convinced it's their family curse. On the hospital room television, a televangelist is talking about the truth setting you free. Chris is like, F this, and turns off the TV. Yeah, I don't think he and Kathy have much regard for the truth right about now. He gives Kathy a Valium, probably to shut her up. She's clearly upset about her son being a little wuss. Bart is dreaming about Malcolm. When he wakes up, he finds a photo of himself and his brother in his hand. He sees a man who looks like John Amos leaving the room. On the photo, written in red, is the word lies. So now Cindy's mother is dead. So that means she needs new parents. Bart is leaving the hospital in a wheelchair. He talks about how people who are sweet are weak, and his parents recognize the saying. I assume they heard it from their grandmother or something when they were kids. Kathy is talking about making her younger son a special homecoming treat. Bart wishes his mother would just shut up. When Cindy arrives at the house, Jory is very welcoming, but Bart doesn't want anything to do with her little girl hugs. He'd rather be with his bugs. Bart is now dancing with Corinne. I don't trust this woman. He asks her about the painting she used to have that looked like his father, Chris. She says he doesn't know what he's talking about. Just because someone looks like his father doesn't mean it actually is his father. He then notices the painting is gone, and she gaslights him some more, saying it was probably part of some fever dream. But he doesn't let it go at that. He asks her how she knew Chris. She confesses to being both Kathy and Chris's mother. She says she feels responsible for how they turned out, but quickly points out she has no reason to feel responsible. Yeah, right. She blames her kids for her nervous breakdown. She warns Bart that he must not speak of any of this or his life will be ruined. Shameless. As devastating as this news is to Bart, he's ready for more lifelong trauma. He asks her to tell him what she knows about his real father. She suddenly starts to feel faint, so he leaves. Bart is raging about sin when he's alone with his dog, and he accuses his dog of almost killing him. This doesn't look good for Clover. Jory's girlfriend Melody is going to college soon. Her parents want her to go to school on the East Coast and not to some snowflake California college. That's basically what she says. I wonder if Jory is supposed to be about 17 or 18 in this. I think this takes place in the summer. It took place in the summer, fall, and early winter of 1983 in the book. I'm thinking the movie is supposed to take place around 1989 or something, but it's very confusing. Kathy says that no matter what happens with Melody's schooling, she hopes she'll remain close to the family. Bart says that their family is cursed, and Jory is angry at him for saying such a horrible thing in front of his girlfriend. But Bart thinks this is why he is so screwed up, with allergies and being short. Kathy and Chris take him to a psychiatrist. They make a point to say there is no history of abuse or mental illness in the family, and that Bart's bio-dad is dead. Corinne gives Bart a bow and arrow. This might just make up for the trauma she's already inflicted on him and the additional trauma she's about to inflict on him. He's so excited to play with this new toy in the barn with John Amos. Jory is teaching a bunch of children how to do ballet by demonstrating with his girlfriend. After the lesson, Jory has a chance to go for a car ride with Melody, but he turns her down to check on his brother Bart. He's such a good kid, worrying about his psychotic little brother, giving up a chance to sin with Melody in order to do what's right. I hope Bart appreciates the sacrifice. In the book, Jory was a real goody-goody. So Jory finds Clover dead and screams. He finds Bart in the barn with a bow and arrow. They get into a fight. Jory tells him the lady next door is not his grandmother, even though he has nothing to go on other than his own personal feelings on the matter. Bart tells him that feelings make you weak. Jory asks him about Clover, and Bart gets defensive. He'd never hurt an animal. Bart accuses Jory of sinning with Melody. For some reason, Jory thinks this is the perfect opportunity to spend some time in his attic. When he goes up there, he finds 2 small beds that weren't there before. Bart is sitting by himself, looking sad. Corinne joins him, and is so happy to hear that she has so completely broken his spirit that he now believes she is the only one who loves him. But when he adds that John Amos is the only other person who loves him, she gets upset about this. John is a servant. How dare he fight her for control over this fragile little boy's mind? Corinne confronts John Amos about what he's been doing with Bart. Jory somehow figures out that there's a box containing incriminating evidence against his mother and stepfather in the attic. Not sure how he finds this out, but oh well. Inside a black box, he finds a letter Chris wrote to Kathy on her 13th birthday. In the letter, Chris talks about how his love for her is the only thing that makes him able to endure their imprisonment, and that one day they will make a life for themselves on the outside. This letter is very suspicious, because Jory always thought his parents met as adults, not as children. Ultimately, though, this letter makes 0 sense to Jory without additional context. In the book, Jory finds out about Kathy and Chris from a conversation he overhears between his grandmother Marisha and his mother. Marisha shows up unannounced in California, and there she finds out that Kathy is not married to Paul, as she was led to believe, but is in fact playing house with her brother. Also in the book, Kathy is writing a memoir about her childhood, and Jory and Bart read chapters from the manuscript when she's not looking. Corinne continues her grooming of Bart by massaging his shoulders and talking about how he is maturing, and this leads to another conversation about his father. Corinne finally confesses that his father was originally her husband before her daughter seduced him and took Bart Sr. away from her. She says that Kathy's hatred for her is irrational. Of course she would say that. She says she only wants what's best for her kids. Sure she does. She tells Bart that he's like the son she should have had with Bart Sr. I don't doubt that she sees Bart Jr. as her son, but I also know how she was with her actual son, Chris Jr., and let's just say it was a bit inappropriate. Cindy is playing with her doll in the pool. Bart takes his anger out on her by trying to drown her. His parents aren't okay with this behavior, and Chris locks Bart in the attic while the 12-year-old rants and raves. Chris mentions to Kathy that they need to talk to the doctor about this, but Kathy is afraid Bart will tell the family secrets. Chris is like, who's the doctor going to believe, us or some crazy boy? But Kathy is also afraid they'll lock up Bart. Jory confronts Corinne, and she apparently is the one who tells him the truth about his parents. The doctor tells Kathy and Chris that Bart is exhibiting signs of schizophrenia. The boy blames Malcolm for his bad behavior. Of course, this name is triggering to Bart's parents, but they pretend that this is just the rambling nonsense of their younger son. They don't want to resort to electroshock therapy, and I have to say, ever since reading about Sylvia Plath, I've been very anti-shock therapy, so good for them. Kathy and Chris ask the doctor if Bart said anything else, and the doctor's like, nothing worth repeating. Kathy and Chris take this to mean she's hiding something from them. Chris comes home to find Jory sitting on the couch and staring into space. He's clearly traumatized by something. Jory is now calling him Chris, not Dad, so that's a red flag. Jory tells Chris to go speak to his grandmother next door if he wants to know what's wrong. Chris finds out the lady next door is his mother, Corinne. He's not pleased that she's been turning his son against him. She says she wants her family back, but mostly it appears she just wants Bart for her very own. Chris tells her that because he is a doctor, he has special doctor powers, and also friends in high places, so stay away. She says, what will they think if they find out the truth about you and Kathy? Kathy confronts Chris because their charge card has been declined, and there is very little money in their bank account. Chris is like, don't worry about it. Not sure what's going on with that, but I don't think it ever comes back up again. John Amos visits Bart in the hospital and tells him he needs to cool it with a crazy talk. Jory tells Melody the truth about his parents. She is devastated, and turns on him for telling her something she didn't care to know. Bart now claims that Malcolm has left the building. Chris is like, hooray, made-up Malcolm is gone. He knows Malcolm is a real guy. That Chris, he's so shady. Kathy has a recital to attend for her little ballerinas. Bart tells her to break a leg, and what do you know, at the recital, she sees Corinne in the audience with a veil over her face, and it shocks her so much that she falls backward off the stage and hurts her knee. Marisha decides this is a good time to visit. She can't keep the name of the housekeeper straight. Her name is Emma, but she keeps calling her Amy. We find out that Marisha blackmailed Chris when her studio was doing poorly. She threatened to expose his dirty family secret. When Kathy finds out, she wants to kill Marisha. Chris is like, easy there. But Kathy is not about that and confronts Marisha. Marisha wants to take Jory with her to New York, but Kathy refuses to give up her son, even though he might be at that age where he's about to go to college anyway. But nobody can call Kathy a rational human being who thinks about the welfare of others before her own wants. Marisha calls Bart nuts and blames Kathy for this, which seems fair. Kathy says, go ahead, tell the whole world the truth about us. I don't care anymore. I'm not sure I believe that, though. I think she does care. Bart runs off, angry at Marisha for calling him nuts, I guess, and tells John that he can't keep up with the charade anymore. He says that the hypocrisy really grinds his gears, and John is like, well then, you'll just love this part. And so Bart learns that everything he hates most about his parents, they learned from his beloved grandmother. And then some. Kathy goes next door to have a little chat with the veiled woman. She soon learns it is indeed her hated mother. In this confrontation with Corinne, Kathy claims she was locked in the attic for 3 years, so apparently the movie series can't get these details straight. The brothers are 2 years apart in Petals on the Wind, and about 5 years apart in If There Be Thorns. In Petals, Kathy says they were locked in the attic for 2 years. In Thorns, she says it was 3 years. The books weren't this confusing, even with a ghostwriter involved at the end. John Amos has had enough of this, and knocks both women out cold. Bart enters the living room and asks if they're still alive. By the way, in the book, my understanding is that John Amos warped the mind of Bart so that he could enlist his help in killing Bart's mother and grandmother, and then blame it all on the little boy who's recently had a psychotic break. So it was a scheme he concocted because he wanted Corinne's money. In the book, he was married to Corinne, and with her dead, and Kathy dead, and Bart crazy, maybe he figured the money would go to him. I don't know. I don't completely understand, but I feel it was something like that. In the movie, I think he just doesn't like Kathy and Corinne because he considers them sinful and wants them dead. He locks the two women up in the barn and starts ranting to them about sin. Once again, it's what I call a psycho death rant because he's probably gonna die soon, but before he does, we need to know just how off he is at the world and at his victim who is about to kill him. He says that his intention is to break the family cycle of sin. He sets the barn on fire. In the movie, it seems more clear that Bart is not in on this and that he is very much against what John Amos is planning to do. In the book, he kind of goes back and forth between, I love my mother, but she needs to be redeemed by fire. In the movie, he just basically tells John Amos he's full of it. Corinne apologizes to Kathy for not being contender for Mother of the Year, and Kathy accepts this apology. In the book, Kathy is a little less quick to forgive. She does finally forgive her, but only as her mother is being lowered into the ground. In the movie, Bart goes to Chris for help. In the book, I think Chris has to basically pull the info out of his younger son as though he was pulling teeth. Bart tries to help his grandmother. She tells him to run. John Amos tries to stop him. Corinne stabs John with a pitchfork. Kathy is horrified as she watches the barn burn with her mama inside. Marisha comes up upon the scene and tells Jory she wants to take him away from all of this craziness. He's like, "Not so fast. My family is crazy, but I love them, and if you dare say one word about our family secret, I will cut you off. See you at Christmas." Melody reconciles with Jory. She says she wants him to be able to trust her, and she shouldn't have punished him for being honest about his family's shame. Bart shows Cindy a mouse being fed to his pet snake. Kathy and Chris are convinced Dr. Phillips helped, and Bart is back to normal. Jory goes up to the attic with Melody, but on his way there, he catches a glimpse of Bart standing in front of his bedroom mirror, wearing a vest and a tie, and being very Malcolm-like. The book also ends on a sinister note, with Bart basically sneaking into his parents' locked bedroom to watch them while they sleep. Gives me serious The Bad Seed vibes. What happens next for Jory, Bart, and the Dollenganger's surviving siblings? Stay tuned for my review of Seeds of Yesterday, coming next week. I give this third movie a 3 out of 5. I like some of the changes it made. I like that it made Corinne more shady. In the book, she seemed more of a repentant grandma. In the movie, she seems to be looking to manipulate Bart, and I get this feeling she's doing a little of what she did with Chris growing up, treating him like a substitute for his dead father. Very inappropriate. Also, blaming Kathy and Chris for things that Corinne knows well she did on her own.